What if everything you knew was only the surface? What if a love story that began under cameras slowly turned into something darker? Something hidden in hotel corridors, secret phone calls, and midnight flights. Tonight we bring you a gripping story of fame, secrecy, and forbidden choices. This is about more than romance. It's about ambition, temptation, and risk. For the past year, Rob Warne and Jeniffer had been secretly involved in a romantic relationship. Away from the public eye, their affair continued. But behind this relationship was a far more dangerous secret. They became involved in illegal activity, gold smuggling, and drug trafficking. To avoid attention, they carried on their operations quietly. Reports from secret sources revealed multiple meetings in five-star hotels. Jeniffer is currently pregnant with twins. Though they kept the matter private for a long time, pressure eventually forced them to make the relationship public. But on December 18th, things took a disastrous turn. Rob and Jeniffer were heading to India carrying drugs and illegal gold. Before reaching the airport, a special police team intercepted them. Rob managed to escape, but Jeniffer was arrested. Charged with serious crimes, she faced trial and was sentenced to 2 months in prison. Police continue to search for Rob. Fame has a way of distorting reality. When Rob and Jeniffer first met, there were no warning signs of danger. Both knew the pressure of public attention, constant judgment, and the loneliness of being recognized everywhere, but truly known by no one. Their connection began quietly, with honest conversations, shared frustrations about fame, and mutual understanding of life in the spotlight. At first, it felt harmless, but secrecy has its own pull. The more they hid their bond, the deeper it became. They avoided public appearances together, shared nothing on social media, and planned every interaction carefully. Secrecy became intoxicating, a private world only for them. Behind their emotional connection, something else was forming. Rob, restless and seeking control, explored risky opportunities. Jeniffer, ambitious and independent, was drawn to fast success and financial freedom. Their conversations shifted from emotional support to strategy. Trust became dependency. They weren't criminals overnight. They convinced themselves they were smarter than the system, that rules didn't apply to them. Every secret made the next one easier. By the time they realized the danger, secrecy was normal. Rob and Jeniffer didn't even call it a relationship out loud. Messages were half sentences. Calls avoided names. Everything was coded. They met in cities where no one expected them. Flights last minute, rooms under false names, arrivals staggered. To the world, nothing changed. Interviews, smiles, social media posts all told safe stories. But behind the surface, a different life unfolded, built on whispered promises and locked doors. What bound them was escape. Rob found in Jeniffer someone who didn't see him as a headline or a persona. She challenged him, pushed him to think bigger, riskier. Jeniffer saw Rob as someone who understood her hunger for more, control, power, independence. Their affair became a refuge where rules didn't exist. But secrecy demands loyalty, and loyalty demands sacrifice. They stopped confiding in friends, old connections faded. Every question raised defenses. Trust existed only between them. When opportunities appeared promising fast money, they didn't hesitate. Secrecy had trained them for this life. Each meeting became heavier, carrying unspoken tension. They weren't just hiding love. They were protecting a bigger secret. Ordinary life now felt like failure, so they went deeper. Every decision tightened the knot. Every secret added another lock. Luxury became camouflage. Five-star hotels, with marble lobbies and anonymity, were perfect covers. In Dubai, Istanbul, Bangkok, they blended in with business travelers and celebrities. They never arrived together. One checked in early. The other came hours later. Staff asked no questions. Money ensured silence. Inside, time felt suspended. Phones face down, windows covered, voices low. Silence became habit, survival. Meetings weren't just for intimacy. People came and went, exchanging words, documents, or sealed packages. Rob managed logistics, timing, and routes, obsessing over precision. Jeniffer observed, asked questions, negotiated. They told themselves it was temporary, just a way to secure their future. But luxury blurred morals. Expensive wine replaced doubt. Ocean view suites made danger feel distant. Consequences felt abstract. Each successful meeting reinforced their belief in being untouchable. No arrests, no leaks, no suspicion, until the nights grew longer and meetings more frequent. Jeniffer noticed changes in Rob. His sleep became shallow, patience thinner. He watched exits instinctively, tense at every sound. Rob noticed Jeniffer became quieter, more cautious, often lost in thought, calculating uncertain futures. Their affair was no longer only about love. It had become a life built on secrets, risk, and a shared fate that demanded a price they weren't prepared to pay. They never spoke about fear directly, because admitting fear meant admitting vulnerability, and vulnerability was the one thing this world could not afford. Still, beneath the silk sheets and city lights, something was changing. The silence between them was no longer romantic. It felt heavy, almost suffocating. The deals were bigger, the risks sharper, and the exits fewer. Luxury that once protected them was slowly becoming a gilded cage. Every secret has a center. For Rob and Jeniffer, it was the operation that existed in shadows. It revealed itself slowly, piece by piece, like a puzzle designed to trap anyone who tried to see the whole picture. At first, it was called movement, then logistics, then simply the work. Nothing illegal was spoken aloud in the beginning. Instead, there were talks of routes that worked better, materials that needed to arrive intact, and schedules that could not afford delays. The language was vague, letting them tell themselves they were still safe. But deep down, they knew they were not. Rob believed intelligence could outpace danger. He studied shipping patterns, customs loopholes, and timing windows, convincing himself that understanding systems meant controlling them. Rules only applied to people who didn't know how to bend them. Jeniffer understood something different. She understood people. She knew how deals were made without contracts, how silence could be bought, how fear could be hidden behind professionalism. When she spoke, others listened, not because she was loud, but because she was precise, calm, and unflinching. Together, they became efficient. Too efficient. Money began moving faster than expected, enough to normalize risk, enough to make turning back feel irrational. Each success reinforced the belief that they were smarter than the dangers everyone warned about. They set strict rules: never move the same way twice, never fully trust a contact, never ask unnecessary questions, and most importantly, never speak about it outside the room. That rule isolated them completely. Friends noticed distance, calls went unanswered, relationships faded. But isolation felt safer than exposure, safer than slipping up. Still, cracks began to form. Jeniffer asked questions Rob didn't want to answer about scale, exits, and what would happen if something went wrong. Rob dismissed her concerns with confident, rehearsed answers. They were no longer in control. The operation had its own momentum. Pulling away would raise questions, and questions attracted attention, the one thing they could not survive. What began as opportunity had turned into obligation. They had crossed the line with no clear way back. The deeper they went, the clearer one truth became. This business was a countdown. Living two lives fractures the mind. By now, Rob and Jeniffer had perfected appearing normal. Interviews were calm, smiles effortless. Publicly, they seemed in control. Behind closed doors, control was slipping. Rob slept in fragments. His phone was always near, volume down but notifications never muted. He memorized exits everywhere, restaurants, hotels, even friends' homes. He noticed reflections, footsteps, pauses, and conversations that were slightly too long. Every unknown number felt like a threat. Every delay felt intentional. Jennifer's paranoia was different. She noticed patterns: who asked what, who became distant, who seemed too curious. Conversations replayed in her mind. Even harmless comments felt loaded with meaning. Delayed flights weren't weather, they were surveillance. Misplaced calls weren't busy schedules, they were avoidance. Friendly smiles weren't politeness, they were suspicion. Their relationship, once fueled by secrecy and excitement, strained under fear. Arguments were whispered, precise, sharp. Jennifer wanted an end plan. "How long does this last?" she asked one night on the edge of a hotel bed that no longer felt luxurious, only temporary. Rob didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, the word soon sounded empty even to him, because soon had no shape anymore. The operation demanded constant attention, new routes, contacts, and risks. Saying no was no longer simple. Every refusal invited scrutiny. Every hesitation raised doubt, and doubt was dangerous. They set emotional boundaries, not to protect each other, but to limit damage if something went wrong. Less affection in public, fewer messages, more distance. It hurt, but fear hurt more. Jennifer began to wonder if love had been the entry point into something she no longer recognized. Rob wondered if ambition had blinded him to the cost of keeping control. Neither spoke these thoughts aloud because speaking them would make them real. The irony was cruel. The secrecy that once protected them was now imprisoning them. Their double lives collided constantly, forcing lies even when silence would have been easier. They were moving forward, but not by choice. And in the background, consequences were quietly moving toward them. Nothing exposes a lie faster than the future. Jennifer noticed something was wrong before she said anything. Fatigue that didn't fade, nausea that came in waves, a quiet intuition she couldn't ignore. At first, she told herself it was stress, a side effect of the life they were living. Until it wasn't. The confirmation came alone, in a bathroom under harsh lighting. She sat staring at the result, breathless. Twins. The word echoed with terrifying clarity. When she told Rob, the room went still. No anger, no excitement, just suffocating silence. Rob sat slowly, trying to process what he already knew. This changed everything. A child or two didn't fit into secrecy, sudden travel, false names, or planned exits. It introduced permanence into a life built entirely on escape. Jennifer felt fear, yes, but also clarity. For the first time in months, the future had shape, weight, and consequence. She wanted out. Not tomorrow. Not soon. Now. Rob struggled differently. Knowing this life they built could no longer sustain them both. Rob and Jennifer sat in silence for a long time, the hum of the city outside their hotel window a distant echo. The weight of reality pressed down on them in a way that adrenaline never had. Twins. A future neither had planned. The luxury suites, the coded messages, the calculated exits. All of it suddenly seemed fragile, meaningless against the permanence of new lives depending on them. Jennifer broke first, her voice quiet but firm. "We can't keep doing this. Not with them coming. We have to stop, Rob. We can't risk everything for money anymore." Her hands trembled slightly as she held the test results. The irony wasn't lost on her. Her life, already lived in secrecy, had now been split in two. The life she had chosen and the life she was about to be forced into. Rob looked down, fingers pressed to his forehead. I don't know how, Jen. We've gone too far. Every contact, every route, every deal, it's a chain. We can't just walk away." His voice was raw, but beneath it was fear, not anger. Fear of losing control. Fear of consequences. Fear of failing the woman he loved. She leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Then let me help you. Let me help us get out before it's too late. Before someone else decides for us." The next few days became a delicate balancing act. Jennifer wanted to plan an exit. Rob was still tangled in operational logistics, but he knew she was right. Their next moves had to be calculated. Every message, every call, every flight had to be considered. They created new codes, shuffled their contacts, delayed shipments, and rerouted conversations to obscure patterns. For Jennifer, each step was terror and relief at once. She was planning freedom, but it felt like walking a tightrope over fire. For Rob, each adjustment was anxiety wrapped in precision. He analyzed patterns with obsessive care, knowing a single mistake could undo everything. The pregnancy brought urgency to their plans. They needed safety, but they also needed time. She scheduled doctor appointments in secret, making sure no one could trace her movements. Each ultrasound, each heartbeat, was a reminder of stakes that had never existed before. The lives growing inside her were innocent, yet they tied her to the operation in ways that fear could never explain. Then came the call that changed everything. Rob's network had been compromised. A contact had been careless. A shipment delayed. A tracking anomaly flagged. It was a small mistake in isolation, but in their world, small mistakes were fatal. Rob's hands shook as he read the message, the tension in his shoulders impossible to hide. We have to move faster. The risk is increasing, he told Jeniffer later that night. The city lights outside felt dimmer, distant. She nodded, silent, aware that speed now equaled survival. Every step they had taken to maintain control was suddenly not enough. They changed hotels, moved flights, and shuffled appearances. They avoided patterns they had once relied on. But stress was catching up. Jennifer's fatigue worsened. Nights were sleepless. Rob's paranoia reached new levels. Every passerby a potential threat. Every camera a possible exposure. Their luxurious camouflage had lost its effect. It was in these moments, alone in a room too large for comfort, that they realized the operation had already claimed them. They weren't partners in adventure anymore. They were prisoners of their own ambition. The very secrets that once gave them freedom now dictated every move, every thought, every breath. Jeniffer looked at Rob one night and asked, "Do you think we can even make it out alive?" Her voice was low, almost a whisper. Rob didn't answer immediately. He traced the outline of the map they had spread across the bed. Routes, flight paths, hotels marked with notes. "I don't know," he finally said, "but we have to try. We can't go back. Not now." Then came the revelation that changed the game entirely. The authorities had identified patterns. Surveillance reports, customs intelligence, and local tips converged. Rob and Jennifer's movements had been tracked, slowly but surely. Their meticulous planning had delayed exposure, but not prevented it. They were being watched more closely than ever, and the stakes had escalated. Jennifer's pregnancy made hiding even harder. Doctors and prenatal care meant appointments, routines, and locations that could be traced. Each heartbeat she heard during scans felt like a countdown, a reminder that time was running out. She could no longer rely on secrecy to protect herself or her unborn children. Rob suggested one last plan. A diversion, a false trail, a calculated exit through international borders where enforcement might be weaker. Jeniffer hesitated, fear and hope clashing inside her. "If we do this, there's no turning back," she said. "I know," he replied, "but staying is no longer an option." The night they left, every movement was precise. They changed vehicles multiple times, booked fake reservations, and avoided all predictable routes. Jeniffer sat in the back seat, gripping her bag, heart racing, every small noise setting off alarms in her mind. Rob drove steadily, eyes scanning the road, body tense with constant awareness. Crossing borders was tense, but they made it through minor checkpoints. Each clearance felt like a small victory, yet both knew it was temporary. Authorities were closing in, networks tightening. Their luxury and wealth, which once provided freedom, now only made them targets. They reached a city where they hoped to disappear, at least temporarily. Jeniffer rested, finally allowing herself a few hours of sleep. Rob stayed awake, monitoring communications, scanning news reports, and updating routes. Even in exhaustion, the operation demanded attention. They were trapped by secrecy, and yet the twins growing inside Jeniffer were a source of hope, a reminder of why they had to survive. It was here that Jeniffer realized the truth about their lives, the choices they had made, the love that had started it all, the ambition that drove them. They had all led to this point. There was no simple solution, no clean break. Their existence was a delicate balance between risk and survival, secrecy and exposure, fear and hope. Each day became a negotiation with fate. Every flight, every hotel, every shipment became a calculation. Jeniffer felt the weight of her unborn children with every move, while Rob felt the weight of their entire operation, knowing a single slip could destroy them all. They were no longer merely hiding. They were running against consequences that had been building for months, years even. And yet, despite everything, the bond between them had changed. Love had evolved into partnership, not in romance, but in survival. They needed each other, depended on each other, more than ever. Fear was no longer just a shadow. It was a constant companion, shaping every thought, every decision. Jennifer finally spoke one night, voice firm despite exhaustion. We may not control the world, Rob, but we can control each other at least. And for them, she touched her stomach lightly. We have to try. Rob nodded. For them. And for us. No more mistakes. No more shortcuts. They knew the road ahead was treacherous. Every contact,